Hello everyone, welcome to my second video in the 4-part YouTube series regarding the overview of CAMS study guide. I hope that those who are preparing for the CAMS exam or who are thinking of attempting CAMS exam will find this video very useful. The first video in this series gave you information regarding what is covered in chapter 1 of CAMS study guide. Now we'll focus on chapter 2 of the CAMS study guide. Along the way, I will share you some tips and tricks that will help you to prepare for this exam effectively and efficiently. Let us start. This chapter begins with explaining the core concepts of Financial Action Task Force or FATF. FATF is a global standard setter in anti-money laundering and terrorism financing. This section starts with explaining what does FATF means, what are its objectives and main activities. You need to remember evaluation criteria that FATF follows while granting membership to any country. Then this section explains the major highlights of previous and updated recommendations. We suggest that if you have never gone through FATF recommendation, it is about time. The thing that you should remember is FATF recommendation is not only useful for this chapter, but the majority of concepts of CAMS study guide has derived from FATF recommendations. Further, you should also be aware of the criteria on the basis of which FATF classify a country as a non-cooperative countries. Previously, it was known as high-risk jurisdiction. Next is about Basel Committee, which is a global standard setter for the regulation of bank worldwide. The main point to focus here is that it has introduced different principles and paper at different timeline regarding various provisions of anti-money laundering and combating financing terrorism that financial institutions should apply. For example, the main highlights of the paper introduced in 2001 by Basel Committee talks about 4 elements of KYC program. They are customer identification, risk management, customer acceptance, and monitoring. It's also talk about 3 lines of defense that you might already know. Now we'll talk about European Union directives on money laundering. There are 4 directives altogether. You have to focus on major requirement that each directive introduced because CAMS exam will focus on that. Like for example, the 3rd directive extended the requirement of CGD and STR reporting to trusts, company service providers, life insurance, dealers selling goods for cash, which was not applied previously. Moreover, most of you already know that European Union directives are enforceable to all European Union states. Let us now talk about 9 FATF style regional bodies who are recognized by FATF and whose main objective is to combat money laundering and terrorism financing risk for effective anti-money laundering and combating financing terrorism system. The important thing that you need to focus here is that what is the unique feature these regional bodies possess. If you look at objectives and scope of these regional bodies, they are almost same. So you need to focus on distinguishing characteristics like which one is voluntary or mandatory, which geographical region they cover, what are the special purpose which lead to establishment of this organization. Now we have come to another important section, that is Wurzburg principle. This chapter talks about few major principles of Wurzburg relating to private banking, correspondent banking, transaction monitoring. This section only explains in abstract about major component of this principle. For better understanding, please look at the whole principle that can be downloaded from the Wurzburg official website. The download link is given below in the description section of this video. Moving on, this chapter talks about the major provisions regarding anti-money laundering and terrorist financing introduced by World Bank and International Monetary Fund in their different papers. As for example, in April 2004, they adopted a pilot program in adoption with FATF which put an end to FATF's practices of publicizing non-cooperative countries. Be aware, in this chapter there are a lot of provisions introduced by different organizations in their white paper or conceptual papers. that you need to remember. This is further complicated by the fact that all these provisions look similar in one way or another. The best option that you can opt is to create a chart with the name of entities and their published papers, along with the date dictating those provisions. You can do this by yourself or by our study notes for this chapter, where these things are done for you with appropriate reference to FATF, USBOG and other resources where necessary to clarify the concept. For the first time, you may want to read these study notes in conjunction with study guide. But rest assured, you will find this study guide an effective tool for saving time and effort in your endeavor to pass CAMS exam successfully. The final section is very significant part of this chapter, which is related to US Patriot Act, OFAC and other US laws. This section has a various quotation from the act that you need to memorize. For instance, Section 313, Prohibition on correspondent accounts for foreign shell banks, which require banks and security brokers to obtain certification from foreign banks who need to certify at least once every 3 years that they are not themselves shell banks and that they do not permit shell banks to access to the US correspondent account through a nested correspondent relationship. There are specific requirements for each section that you need to be very clear. This is not important for your exam purpose, but also in your day-to-day job if you are already involved in AML safety, trade finance, treasury or remittance area. That's it for this video. I hope you have found this video useful. In the next video, we'll talk about summary of chapter 3 of CAMS study guide, which is a very important chapter of CAMS study guide because of its length and important content. Therefore, please hit the subscribe button now and never miss an update about upcoming videos. Also, we have started discussion forum where you can put your queries regarding CAMS exam, CAMS study guide or about our CAMS study notes, as well as general queries regarding anti-money laundering and terrorist financing. The link for this is also given in the below description section of this video.